Hey, salutations, it's your old pal Revenge Creature, and welcome to a Revenge Creature editorial of sorts. Happy May the 4th, by the way. I've been wanting to do a video about Star Wars, just discussing the current state of the movies and where it came from and where it's going. I've been wanting to do that for a little while, and I thought that was Snicker's Tale, of course. I thought today would be a great day to go ahead and do that, with it being May the 4th, it just kind of worked out. Now, I've been with Star Wars since the beginning. In fact, I don't know how well this is going to turn out on webcam, but this is me opening the original Kenner land speeder back in Christmas. Uh, and there's the original box, and I'm putting the stickers on at that point. You can see the gold carpet everywhere, and those lovely pants. Wow, styling. And then I don't have anything for the next Christmas. I'm not sure where that picture is, but here's the Christmas 1980 where I'm getting the Empire Strikes Back snowspeeder, ripping into that, and my sister got this cool tea set. This big thing, believe it or not, kids, is a stereo, and this giant lid lifts up, and there's a record player in there. I think it might have even had an 8-track. This is something we inherited after my mom's brother passed away. He had it in his house, I believe. But I heard the Star Wars radio dramas on that thing, and the scene where Leia gets tortured. They go into discussion about how in the radio drama how her heart filling is going to explode or something. That freaked me out. Here's a neat little clipping from our local newspaper back in 1980. This is for the showing of The Empire Strikes Back. Adults for $4, child $2. It says the saga continues. No passes, no bargain nights. This engagement. There you go. That's Luke Hoth there, and that doesn't look really great. I don't know. It didn't really turn out. I want to show something else real quick that I grabbed before the video started that I've had for a while. There's the premiere issue of Star Wars Insider. This is when it went from Bantha tracks to an actual magazine, and it's great because it's got this article on the holiday special, which is, you know, just a weird thing. There's Chewbacca and his family, and if you don't know anything about the Star Wars holiday special, don't look it up. Just watch it. Just find it on YouTube and watch it. It was actually it actually comes up now and again. I want to adjust that a little bit. It comes up now and again on YouTube, and it's cool, especially if you can see it with the original commercials. Okay, so the 40th anniversary of Star Wars. Um, when I saw it as a kid, I don't really remember the event of seeing it. Just like once you see it, it just becomes part of you. And the same thing with Empire Strikes Back. I was just too little to really have a concrete memory of seeing it. Uh, I remember the experience. I remember the first thing of Empire Strikes Back I ever. Well, let's back up. Star Wars. There was a girl in my class. We took a field trip to an amusement park, and when we were in one of these rides, the girls like, "Let's play Star Wars," and I'm like, "What the heck is Star Wars?" And so they kind of explained it to me, and then I got my mom to take me to see it, and that might have even been seven. Well, I don't know what year that was, but anyway, I don't think I saw it during the summer. I think I saw it like because it was in the theater forever. I actually think it might have been late in the year. I don't know. I don't remember when it was. And the same thing with Empire. The first thing of Empire I saw was we were at Kroger and Yoda was on the cover of People magazine, I believe. And I was just like, what? I have to see this movie. And I remember seeing the trailer, and back then on TV, sometimes the trailers were in a weird aspect ratio. So, like, they kind of look like the planet would look egg shaped or people would look extended. And I remember there's a shot of R2 and he looked real thin. I was like, what in the world? It was some of the Cloud City scenes. But anyway, Return of the Jedi, I got the storybook. In fact, this storybook. And the day before the movie came out, we got this the last day of school. And I remember we tried not to read it. Me and my best friend Larry, we were like, "No, no, let's not read this book." and we ended up reading the book, and then we were like, oh my gosh, can you believe Darth Vader is really his father? Spoiler alert. And all that. Leia's his sister. It was just crazy. And there's not a good picture of a biker scout. There's only this explosion. So I thought they were actually motorcycles. I guess because of Battlestar Galactica 80 or whatever, they had motorcycles in that show, I believe. Anyway, so we go to see Return of the Jedi, and the line stretches from the theater way, way back. Like it was in a L-shaped plaza. I'll do it this way, and the theater was kind of in a breezeway, and so here's the ticket booth, and it stretched all the way down past like one or like two to three shops, and then a big store. Like it went all the way down. Like if you're from my hometown, and you're watching this. It went from what was the ticket counter all the way down to, gosh, I don't even remember. Was it Hex at the time? It started out as Mr. Wiggs. It might have even been something before that. Then it became Hex, and then it became Lazarus. Then Lazarus became Macy's, and then the thing closed, and now it's just part of Kroger's. But anyway, it was a long line, and we were in line, and there went my graphic, and then we were in a long line, and we got hungry waiting because I begged us to get there early, and thank goodness we did. We weren't that far back in line. My mom and sister stepped out of line to go to McDonald's, which was just behind us in the same plaza. And so I stood in line. And then they start selling tickets. Well, the line starts moving, and of course, I'm just like, oh my God, I don't have any money. I mean, how am I supposed to get these tickets? What's going to happen? And they, about the time my mom, or maybe I got out of line. Oh, I know. I think I panicked and got out of line because when we got back in line, uh, the people that we had been around were fortunately let us back in where we were. They realized the little kid panicked, I guess. And I'm sorry, I got a haircut yesterday. I'm still trying to figure out how to do it. And so this hand comes down and says, everybody behind this, we're out of tickets, but like, or it's sold out or whatever. Come back for the next show. But my mom and sister were in front of this hand, and I'm like, oh, I'm with them. So we got into the theater, and this was like not these like theaters that hold 70 people that today, and they've got 16. There were only two screens in this theater. One of them was huge. I mean, this theater was massive. There were 3 rows of seats, and it was packed. And I mean, it's the only time that I can think of, maybe the special editions, but where the theater, because it wasn't like that at Force Awakens, and it wasn't like that at Rogue One. But I didn't go at night. I usually try to go as soon as possible, like the earliest, because I like to avoid the big crowds. But this Return of the Jedi showing, there were people throwing stuff and kids running around, and it was so loud. And then they were selling these programs, and I got one of those, and that was kind of an expensive thing. I think it was like $4, which was more than the movie ticket. And then the lights go down and people erupt, and then just remember leaving the theater exhilarated. Anyway, then when Star Wars started to shrivel up in the late 80s, I bought into the micro collection, the little metal figures, and that was some of the last stuff they made, like along with Power of the Force. And I remember seeing Power of the Force figures on clearance at Walmart for 75 cents. You know those big dump bins that they put DVDs in now? Those things were full of Star Wars figures for 75 cents. Power of the Force. Oh man, how could we have known? I mean, obviously some people knew. I mean, somebody bought them. But anyway, so I was on to GI Joe and Transformers at that point, and so I didn't really think about Star Wars again until they started with the Micro Machines, the Action Masters, the Micro Machines, the lead up to the re-release of the figures, and I think that was '95. But I know I was buying the heck out of those Micro Machines when they were coming out. All those were great. I don't have any of them now. Of course, I sold that stuff years ago. I wish I hadn't, because the Micro Machines that came out for Force Awakens they weren't that great. They were all seemed to be warped a lot more than the originals did. They didn't come with stands. The play sets were just not great. What were those Star Wars cubes that came out for Force Awakens? What was that about? Anyway, well, let's get into the movies. So obviously, I loved the original movies. They were a huge part of my youth. and that makes me an OT curmudgeon, I suppose. Well, the special editions came out, and I went batty. I saw all of them, probably multiple times. I teared up at all the right moments. Um, it wasn't, but I didn't like the Jabba scene. I thought that was weird. I didn't like the Han shooting or Greedo shooting first or whatever. However, that scene got changed, but I didn't mind all the new stuff because at the time it was like we hadn't seen Star Wars in so long that those additions were like great. It was like something neat, new. Hey, cool, wow. It didn't really bother me so much, other than those two scenes. And then in Empire, I don't remember being bothered too much by anything or Jedi. Now, I didn't like the news. Well, the music changes. I didn't like the. I didn't like the Jabba's Palace, the new music, that dance number where that thing goes. I do not like that, and I don't like the Ewok. I mean, I like the original Ewok song. I'm not saying it's nub nubs better than what they put in the special editions. Like that's obviously better music, but I think it's cool that it's a native celebration. Oh man, it's fur washing, whitewashing. I don't know. Anyway, they destroyed the native culture by recording new music. Anyway, so those weren't that bad. Then the prequels came out, and the build up to that was insane. I remember just being so excited, and watching that trailer and thinking, "Wow, this is going to be amazing." And then we went to see it, and it was like, "All right, we just saw Star Wars, yeah." And then like the next day, dude's coming out of the house across the street from me. We were kind of ran in the same circles at one point. Was like, "Hey, have you seen Star Wars? Have you seen Star Wars yet? Phantom Menace, whatever we were saying." And we were like, I was like, "Yeah, man," and it was like, "Yeah, it was cool. That lightsaber battle was cool." And trying to talk about it to somebody else, the cracks started to appear, and I mean, I didn't. I can't say that I hated it, but it was just like it started to kind of. I started to see it wasn't. There were problems, but I went with it. Episode 2 came out, and again, I felt like it was kind of like bloated, and I felt like I was having to defend Star Wars to people. I wasn't crazy about Yoda jumping around, but it looked cool, right? So it was all right. I really dug. I mean, I think one of my favorite parts of Episode 2 was the end shot where you can see there's the Empire. Um, and then Episode 3. I mean, it's a fitting end to that trilogy, but I still have some problems with it. I mean, it's saying it's the best of the three is cliche. I mean, almost not liking them's become cliche. But it's just I don't. What I find interesting is people who don't have any problem with them that grew up with the original trilogy because it's like they're two totally different trilogies. Which I guess if you didn't judge the prequels against the originals, then there wouldn't be a problem. But I just don't think they're that strong. Well, after Episode 5 comes out, Episode 5, 2005, Episode 3 comes out, and I was buying the heck out of all the toys, trust me. And then I even bought the Phantom Menace video game for PS1, and it's kind of interesting story. I went in there to buy the game, and I feel like this was the summer of '99, and it was $39 maybe. I can't remember. But the girl behind the counter at the KB says, "Why don't you save your money and take me to lunch?" I remember that was great. Then my mom was like, accidentally or on purpose, I guess, cock blocking maybe. I don't know, because my mom was like, "You don't know that person, da 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 da," and I was just like, "What the heck?" Okay, but that's my mama. She's so overprotective, and I love her because I might be dead if she wasn't so overprotective. Anywho, uh, so it wasn't until the Red Letter Media Mr. Plinkett review of Star Wars, or Phantom Menace rather, that I really turned on the prequels because it's like didn't have anybody to point out, and even though it's a character, I still think it's a well done review, or well, deconstruction of what's wrong with them from a storytelling standpoint, how they contradict a lot of the things in the original trilogy, and how the characters just aren't as strong or identifiable. Um, so I've been wanting to go back and rewatch them, but like they just don't. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, opinions change, tastes change. I can't ever say that I'm going to hold them in the same regard as I hold the original trilogy. That ain't never going to happen. I'm sorry. But I don't outright hate them the way I did a few years back. Like, say 4 or 5 years ago. I was really just like throwing a fit constantly. And then there was the People versus George Lucas about, that was kind of about the changes he made to the original trilogy. And I think it's BS that we can't get the original trilogy. I mean, we got VHS, and that's fine. I mean, I'll watch VHS till it wears out. And yes, I know those aren't the original cuts because they changed some things. He's been tinkering with them since day one. But anyway, so then we find out Disney's buying Star Wars, and we're going to get more Star Wars movies. So, yay. Oh, in the gap, let's jump back some. I read Shadows of the Empire. I read the Thrawn trilogy. I didn't play any of the games because I didn't have a PC at the time. I didn't have a 64, so I didn't play Shadows of the Empire. But I did buy Shadows of the Empire toys, and I read the book, like I said. And that was in the build-up. And I was buying the Kenner figures. I was working at a video store in the mall called Reel Collections, Reel, very clever. It was actually part of the FYE family. But this is when FYE, I think, might have still been called Disc Jockey. So here's Real Collections, and then diagonal over there is KB. And so when they first got them in, the manager or assistant manager one came over to the store and was like, well, we got them, and I was freaking out. And I think I bought the whole set that night. Anyway, they looked weird, of course. I'm not going to let that pass. They were definitely bulked up in strange proportions, and a lot of the action figures were back then. Didn't I have one of these? I wonder where I laid that. Well, I had. Oh, here we go. Like GI Joe Extreme. And like take that and then look at the Luke Skywalker, who I just happen to have conveniently right here. And the legs were so far apart, and Vader's all bulked up. So they were weird. I'm not gonna try to put that up there, but like I still liked them. I bought them, and I collected the crap out of them through that green series. I don't remember where the cards went to then. A purple maybe, all the way through Shadows of the Empire, and then but I didn't read any of the expanded universe novels. I didn't read many of the books, and the reason why is interesting because, like, I guess I just didn't want that expanded universe to taint anything that I had created in my own mind, how I thought Star Wars would go, or what I think how the story played out, you know. So I didn't really like get into them as much as some people did, and some people are mad that that never became canon. I understand. I mean, you get into a certain part. That's the thing about Star Wars. There's so much to be into, and like there's actually camps, EU, a non-EU, original trilogy only, a prequel trilogy. People who love everything. People who only like the books or something. People who only collect the toys, but are so on the movies. Yeah, I'm sure there's any permutation of collector is out there. But so when Disney comes along, they buy they buy Star Wars, and we're gonna get Force Awakens. We're gonna get a new trilogy, and we're getting standalone movies. Force Awakens. Uh, when I left the theater, I was like, yes, Star Wars is back. And it wasn't any time when I mean, it might have been within 2 days, 3 days, those reviews start coming in, people start saying, oh, it's just a remake of of Star Wars, basically. Excuse me. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, because for a lot of people, myself included, that's what I needed. I needed Star Wars to go back to that galaxy far, far away and kind of like put me back on a track of what Star Wars was. And right out of the gate, that opening scene with Kylo coming in and them torching this village and everything, and I mean, right there, I knew this is not going to be Jar Jar Binks farting in the wind. I mean, this is, well, I fell in love with the characters. I bought all kinds of Rey merchandise, all kinds of Captain Phasma merchandise, all kind Captain Kylo Ren. I didn't buy a whole lot of other merch. I mean, I bought some stuff, Stormtrooper, Flame Trooper. I bought Finn, stuff like that. But I really concentrated on Kylo, Rey, and Captain Phasma as a tertiary kind of focus collection. Well, then Rogue One's going to come out, and um, before I saw the movie, as the trailers were coming out, I would tell people, I have a feeling this is going to end up being like the best Star Wars movie or my favorite Star Wars movie or something along those lines. And so I go to see Rogue One, and I go see Rogue One again, and I go see Rogue One again, and then I go see Rogue One again. And then FBI, I'm sorry, I pirated a copy as soon as possible. And I watched it one more time and anxiously awaited for the digital release, which I pre-ordered on Amazon. Watched it as soon as I could. Went out and bought the Blu-ray Steelbook the first day, Tuesday morning that it came out. And there are two things that bother me about it. One is is poor Gullet. I just think that's a weird creature. I wish it had been. It could have been an alien, but if it hadn't been that octopus-looking thing, like if it had been a person with tentacles, a creature, still could have tentacled up his head, but I didn't like the way that thing looked. It reminded me of the bad job of CGI. And then I thought R2 and 3PO's cameo uh, was like so like same thing with Walrus Man and Doctor Evazan. It was just like, hey, remember these guys? That was just a little too much, a little too on the nose for me as far as like cameos. They, if they had just done those a little more subtle, I think it would have been fine. They wouldn't have stuck out to me. Um, Other than that, I really do think Rogue One is probably my favorite Star Wars movie after or right next to Empire or the first Star Wars even. I think it definitely holds a place with the original trilogy. I think actually more so even than Force Awakens. And I can't wait for episode. I know not to hit this table. I'm really looking forward to episode 8 because I'm hoping they'll take the story. It's it's all open now. We've reestablished what Star Wars was with Force Awakens by practically remaking the original trilogy in one movie and even drawing attention to the fact that that's what it was. And then now we can move forward, which is why I love Rogue One so much. And yes, it was working towards an end that we already knew. We know they got the plans. We just didn't know how they got them. But the thing is, it was so engrossing, and I was so pulled into that story and the way it was told, and those characters, and all the new old stuff, and seeing the old stuff again. Um, it really just love Rogue One. I will defend it, and I even like it more than Force Awakens. I One more thing, and I hate to point out anything that I don't like about it because I feel it has an uphill battle. I feel that a lot of people, including Red Letter Media, who I mentioned, and even one of my favorite podcasts, kind of slam it, sort of say it doesn't really feel like Star Wars and all this stuff. And I think if it doesn't feel like Star Wars, maybe it's because it's not. It's because of what Star Wars has become. I don't know. I don't want to contradict anybody. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. These are just mine, you know. But I thought I would share them. So I do want to open up the debate. And if you disagree with me or agree with me, there is a comment section below. Also, you can find me on Twitter. That's at _skull, and I'm also on Instagram at _skull. And you can subscribe to this channel. I've got more videos coming up soon. I was gonna do Let's Get Loose, which is when I open some of the figures that I've acquired and some of the items I've acquired. I'm gonna try to get that today, but I am going to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 tonight, and I may do a short review, put that up later tonight. Um, the Han Solo movie, not looking forward to that. I'll go see it. I think that's a story that doesn't need to be told. I'm not sure there was a disconnect between going from Rogue One going from Force Awakens to Rogue One, and I had several people that I got that watched Rogue One, including my boss, who was kind of confused as to what I think she was under the impression that Jen grows up to be Leia, but I hope it's I'm not as connected to Force Awakens now. I have to go back and watch Force Awakens a few more times to get back into the groove before I go see Episode 8. You know, I'm excited to see Luke again, but I need to fall back in love with my characters, Rey and Finn and Poe and all, Kylo. So we'll see. I'm hoping they do something cool. I'm hoping that and I don't want it to become too modernized. I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm loving it though. I'm loving this continued. Star Wars has continued ever since I guess from about the late '80s to the very early '90s during that lull where there wasn't a lot of Star Wars stuff going on, to where we are now. And we came from a time a few years ago where there was too much Star Wars. So uh, in this year of the 40th anniversary, it's not being crammed down our throat. We've got Episode 8 coming out. We have very little merchandise clogging the shelves. There was a wave of Rogue One figures that had like Galen Erso, who I really wanted. And I think maybe Admiral Thrawn was in that wave too from Rebels and the Expanded Universe. Which Rebels? Oh, and the cartoons. Shoot, I'll talk about those in another video. But Clone Wars and Rebels expanded the universe in a way that I could appreciate. I don't know why I got more into that. I guess I'm more of a visual canon than written canon, maybe. I mean, it's all written, but anywho, I think I've lost track. This is all kind of an off-the-cuff vlog. I've gone on for a long time now, so I hope you've stuck with me through this whole video. Thanks for watching. I've already mentioned the social media things. You can find me on those sites. Part of the International Nerd Team. That's at nerd_int, nerd team _int on Twitter. That's where you can find Transformers and Beer podcast. I stepped in something weird on the floor. Sorry. um, and my friend Cyber Tiger Retro, and there's a lot of great YouTubers out there doing the small channel thing, and we're all kind of growing together. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and as always, it's your old pal Revenge Creature saying OSQUINOXO.